Borderlands 3 has a problem, and I don't just mean this, or even this. No, it seems Borderlands 3 has somewhat of an identity crisis. In order to start the story that actually happens in Borderlands 3, the writers decided to completely ignore the warning that was given at the end of the pre-sequel about an upcoming war. As the actual player, are we supposed to completely believe that the Calypso twins were the reason this warning was given? Because to me, it doesn't really seem like they were much of a threat. It's then completely shoehorned in that it's explained that they are sirens, and their siren powers are leeching. Which leeching doesn't really make sense at all, because it seems to work for two different ways to enhance the plot. Lilith was completely drained of her powers and she was absolutely fine, whereas Maya was leeched off and died. It doesn't make sense, it's not consistent. But that's just one small chunk of it. The characters themselves are completely different in Borderlands 3 than any other game in the series. Lilith, for example. Lilith from game 1 has been established as someone who rolls with the punches, who takes command when needs be. When Borderlands 3 turns around, she kind of gives up when she loses her siren powers. She takes orders from Ava, and she doesn't really put up much of a fight when Ava accuses her of being the reason of Maya's death, when in actual fact it was Ava's fault. The main problem with Borderlands 3 is that the writing is wildly inconsistent. They don't seem to take any notice of previously established character relations. They don't show any conversations between Lilith, Mordecai and Brick, whereas they completely focus on Ava. And they focus on Ava and the new characters, and they're completely shoved down the throats when returning fans don't want to see these new characters. They want to see the returning favourites like Tina, who's in the game for probably about 5 minutes. It just seems that the main focus in Borderlands 3 is to push these new characters and replace the older ones, when in actual fact no one wants that to happen. I think that's why the reaction to the story has been completely negative from long-standing fans. Obviously I can't speak for every single fan of the previous games, but I know that Gage has been added in as DLC, but she's also in it for about 3 minutes, and it just seems off. But the complete exclusion of Salvador, Axton, I mean, I know we have the echoes for Krieg, but it just doesn't make sense that they've excluded them, especially because in Borderlands 2, all the previous Vault Hunters were there. I know they were probably added in as DLC, just like Gage was, but it just seems off to me that we're having to pay for DLC to actually see the characters that we played for so long with Borderlands 2. It also doesn't really help with supporting the company, especially because of everything that's led up to the release of the game itself, hearing about Randy Pitchford and how all the employees were promised bonuses. Now that's gone out the window. It just seems that the game is kind of mired in controversy, that it's hard to actually play it and support it. And that's the really frustrating thing, because the game itself is really fun. It's the gameplay mechanics, the look of it, everything is perfect, but the story drags it down so much. If we had the visuals and the gameplay aspects in Borderlands 2, then the game would be absolute perfection. I mean, the game still looks pretty good now. They added Ultra HD texture pack. Does make it look even better, but I think if we had the Borderlands 3 visuals in 2, then there's no denying that that game would be the superior game. The game's humour as well just doesn't translate into the current climate. The Borderlands 2 still raises a chuckle every now and then, but you can see where it's aged. But the writing in Borderlands 3, it just hasn't moved on since Borderlands 2, and it really suffers for that. To give the game some credit, however, it does expand a little bit on the history of the Sirens. We do get to see that at the end of a Siren's life, they choose their successor for their powers, or it just goes into the universe and picks someone who is capable. And that's really where I think Borderlands 3 really messed up, because it introduced Ava so soon into the story that it was kind of obvious that Maya was going to die because we then found out that's how sirens work. Once they choose a successor, when they die, they inherit their powers. But it does also raise the question, particularly at the end, with how we're supposed to expect that Lilith has also died. Who did she choose as her successor? I know a lot of people, fans included, would want Tina to be the next siren. A bomb-obsessed psychopath being the Firehawk? I don't see how that will work. A lot of theories going around, especially with the fans, is that Lilith isn't actually dead. I personally believe that theory. What we understand of Lilith's siren powers, phase walk, her body goes into a different dimension while she's in phase walk. So this could have been activated before she hit the moon. So she could be trapped in the moon of Alpus. The one thing I really think about when I think of Borderlands 3 and how it was being perceived is, what did we really expect from the game? When Borderlands 2 was released, it was universally praised by critics and fans. And then we had the pre-sequel, and the reception was mixed. I have mixed feelings about that game also. It's not my favourite. I think it's still better than 1, mainly because it has a story. And it does kind of show the history of Jack, who is still the best Borderlands villain. My other negative about the game is the Calypso twins themselves. How is it that we can go from Commandant Steele, who was pretty bland and didn't really add anything to the story, to Handsome Jack, who is so complicated as a character and so funny, to back down to Commandant Steele's level with the Calypso twins? They're streamers who want to find the vault. Okay, fun. But they interact with the Vault Hunters the same way that Jack did, but it doesn't connect with you in the same way, because you know from the outset that Jack is a real threat, whereas the Calypso twins just come across as whiny teenagers that are just doing this for fans. Their story arc seems to be trying to be something that it's not. You know from the outset that they're the bad guys, you have to stop them. Whereas Handsome Jack, it left the player questioning, are we the bad guy really? Because Jack was wanting to save Pandora from bandits, but he classed you, the player, as the bandits. And that's what makes a good villain. You have to question your own motives. Whereas the Calypso twins, you don't question anything because you know they're the villains. It's just very bland and hollow story. I don't want it to come across that I'm being overly negative about the game, because I do enjoy it. The gameplay mechanics, the visuals are all great, and it's a step in the right directions for the franchise, but we need a better story. Whether that's coming as DLC or whether that's coming in Borderlands 4 in whenever that will release, we just have to wait and see, and that's the irritating thing. I do really enjoy the game, and I will continue to play it, minus its faults. And if you're on the fence about it, then it is going for quite cheap at the moment, because that's also very annoying, especially at the moment. I believe they're offering the game for really cheap and you get the first DLC for free, whereas people like me, the early adopters, we paid full price and paid for the season pack, so we don't really get anything for free. And it's not like the game is very old. It was released in September of last year. It's less than a year old, and it's already heavily discounted, and they're giving DLC away for free. And we've had to pay for it, so, thanks, Gearbox. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think down below. What do you think? Have you got any other theories regarding the game or any of the characters? Who would you actually want to see back from previous games? Where do you see the story continuing from here? Do you think Lilith is actually really gone? Who do you think she chose as a successor? Let me know down below. Leave a like, subscribe, and thank you very much. Bye.